Now we're going to be talking a little bit about how he monetizes his podcast, because as I understand it, he makes some great money through his podcast and through some other things. So let's dive in right there. Alex, let's go to the day that you first thought about pulling in a sponsor. How long did you have your podcast? How did you get the sponsors? Yeah. And what are you doing now?
Yeah, I want to say it was somewhere between the 4 and 5 year mark, maybe right around the 5 year mark. I think it was a couple of years ago. Yes, I've been doing this for about 7.5 years. So I want to say it was probably 5.5 years into the podcast when I first had the thought, hey, I've built up, I was getting a decent amount of downloads. I've kind of been consistently doing 2 episodes a week for 5 years. At that point, I had plenty of episodes. I knew I was impacting people because of the feedback I was getting. And I said, there's a lot of time and energy and money going into this. I think it's at the point where I can actually start to monetize this. I was sticking in line with what I said earlier, that I was still thinking about the listener first, right? But the show had matured and developed enough where I felt comfortable actually putting in a sponsor. And so I just started reaching out to people in my network. Fortunately, I'm pretty well connected in the real estate space. And by the way, make sure to ask me about some of the mistakes and what I've learned post that. But yeah, I remember getting one sponsor, and I believe that first sponsor committed to a 6-month rotation where I was doing a 30-second ad every other show. So, and they were paying, I want to say it was $2,000 a month for a 30-second spot every other show, right? And again, I was doing, so basically once a week, because I was doing 2 shows a week at that point. So essentially for 4 to 5 ads, 30 seconds a piece, they were paying about $2,000 a month. And it was a service that was in the real estate space, but it was a virtual assistant service. It wasn't something that I wasn't sure if it was going to connect with the audience or not, but because it was real estate, I said, okay, let's do this. And then shortly after, kind of the doors opened up, and somebody else who had a high ticket program in the real estate space, it was essentially a CRM solution, was paying almost $3,000 a month, and they committed to for a year. And this was for a 45-second spot every single show. And I remember you and I had conversations about, hey, should it be 15 second, 30 second, 45, a minute? Like, I didn't really know what I was doing, right? So I was consulting with you. I was researching online. And so one show a week would have 2 sponsors, and then the other show would only have 1 sponsor. And I remember testing. So let me just verify, the 45-second ad wasn't every other, it was every show. It was every show? Correct. It was every show. Cool. It was every show. All right. And I remember initially we tested running the ad right when when someone presses play, they start listening to the ad. And then I quickly realized that this could be confusing to someone expecting to hear me. And now they're hearing me, but talking about like some ad. And so we kind of toyed around with them listening to the intro first, then the sponsored ad versus the sponsored ad right out of the gate. And we tested and tweaked a lot of different things. And I think ultimately, and again, just to put this out there, while I did monetize it for close to a year, it didn't end up producing the results the sponsor was looking for, which really affected me because I'm not here to just take somebody's money. I want this to work for them. And it really opened my eyes to, in the future, when you're going to evaluate and have conversations with sponsors, that very similarly, put the amount of money, the revenue you're going to generate in second position. First, figure out, is the product or service something that's reputable, reliable, and has a positive reputation in the marketplace? And number 2, is it a service that is in alignment with my podcast listener? Is it something that's genuinely going to help them? Like the example, Adam, that you shared earlier about it being in Spanish and it just not being connected. Like, it doesn't matter how much money somebody pays you, you're going to start losing listeners. And you've worked so hard to build up this audience that's so important that you don't want to lose them just because you're going to monetize for a period of time. And so I think that's a mistake I made, is I thought that because it was in the real estate space, these are products and services in the real estate space, it would just connect with them. And the fact is that wasn't the case.